I saved a man at sea. He said he loved me. And I fell in love with him. But 2 years later, a woman came to the sea, with red eyes. She said, "I'm his wife of 7 years. Can you give him back to me?" I agreed. But he didn't. He didn't have an ounce of affection for the woman. And his words were as cold as they could be. "I don't know you. So please don't bother me anymore." The woman cried her heart out and left alone, never to return. But he was like a different person from then on. Until one day, I found out his deep secret, and realized that it was all but a trick. I salvaged Ryan when I was catching the sea. It was late fall. The water was cool. The wind was strong. And the tide was receding far, far away with the help of the wind. He was covered in cuts, mostly from the hard shells of oysters. There was nothing to be done about it. For in the sea there were rocks near the mountains, and oysters grew on them. And where there were no mountains, there were stone dams, and oysters grew on them too. People like us, who often go to the sea, would wear rubber shoes and gloves. But he had nothing. So it was really difficult for him. Anyway, it took me a lot of effort to revive him, but he didn't remember anything. I wanted to call the police to help contact his family, but he stopped me. "Can you take me in for a while?" "Why?" He scratched his head a little embarrassed. "I like it here. I don't know why. It somehow makes me feel peaceful." I let out a giggle. "Don't be ridiculous. Honey. This is not a temple. If you want to practice, go somewhere else." But I didn't send him away after all. Because of him, the sea had significantly more customers. He was a good-looking man. Tall and leggy, with thick eyebrows and long eyes. So much so that when I first saw him, I was in a bit of a trance. I kept him as a part-time worker in my cafe. He was very good at making coffee and sang beautifully. Soon, he became the most popular person on the street. Many people came in and asked me, "Mrs. Boss, where's that handsome boy you picked up at sea? What time does he start singing today?" I smiled helplessly. "This is a cafe, not a bar. You really think he's the resident singer? What's wrong with a cafe? Don't you realize he sings better than a singer?" "That's true. I'll have to charge you extra. So you won't get a free ride." They rolled their eyes at me, laughing and calling me a miser. I picked up a duster and pretended to hit them, and the crowd finally dispersed with laughter. The sea breeze was cool. I subconsciously shivered, but felt something that was filling my heart inch by inch. I have been running a CAF by the sea for nearly 10 years. This border town is far away from the hustle and bustle of the city, and the people are simple and nice. And Ryan is right. This place does make people feel peaceful. The world outside is a place for struggle, but the world here is a place for the soul to rest. Every morning, I wake up, make myself a cup of coffee, sit in front of the big floor-to-ceiling windows, look at the sea, and start writing. Yes, I am still a columnist. I don't open a CAF to make money, but to collect stories and write them in my books. My characters are so colorful and vivid. They're like another version of me on a spiritual level. But Ryan, I don't know how to write. He's mysterious. No one knows where he came from. No one knows what he's been through. And no one knows why he floated in the ocean and nearly died. Even he himself did not know. But with him around, the CF became lively. He would help me make coffee in the early morning. He would make delicious toast and omelets. And he would walk with me on the beach in the evening. When the wind picked up, he would naturally take off his jacket and drape it over me. His jacket always smelled faintly of woody perfume. I loved it. "Don't you want to know your past?" I asked him one night out of the blue. "No." He hardly hesitated. He explained, "Losing my memory means life for starting. And I want to outline it again on this blank piece of paper. Which is what I can control at the moment. I don't like things I can't hold on to." He says, "It's what I can control that makes me feel at ease." I asked him again, What if there were people in the past who meant a lot to you? They'd be sad. He smiled a little far-fetched lie. They'll get used to it. People have to die. Don't they? It's just a matter of time. You seem to be taking it easy. I teased with a smile, punching him lightly on the arm. He smiled back. Life is lonely. And I'm only responsible for myself and no one else. That's good. 2. What if it was you? What would you do if you lost someone important? I hesitated for a while and said seriously. I won't lose someone important. As long as I still love that person, he will always exist. Exists in my heart and no one can replace it. Arya. He called my name for the first time. Is that why you stay here? You're waiting for someone who can never come back. I smiled brightly. Baby. Don't think you know me well. I said, running forward into the ocean breeze to end the conversation. Bending down, I picked up a shell and threw it far out towards the sea. As if it wasn't the shell I was throwing away, but the discomfort of being offended. When I got up again, my eyes were already wet. Ryan was right. That was indeed why I stayed on the beach. I was waiting for someone who could never come back. My fiancé Shun Ming Zhao. 10 years ago, he held a wedding of the century for me on a cruise ship. And as the sky was filled with fireworks blooming in the air, he lowered his head and kissed me on the lips. At that moment, the fireworks not only bloomed in the air, but also bloomed in my heart, crackling and crunching. Happiness bloomed in every branch of my body. However, a sudden tsunami ended it all. In the nick of time, he pushed me out. But he himself was swept by the waves into the depths of the sea, never to return. Since then, the light in my life has been extinguished forever. And no matter how many lights are turned on later, it is impossible to illuminate it. My body lies in the sun, but my soul is buried at the bottom of the sea. Gone with him. One starry night, Ryan and I were walking along the beach as usual when he suddenly asked me, slightly sadly, Arya, do you believe that one person can redeem another? I shook my head and smiled softly. I don't believe that one can only ever save oneself. But I do believe that allowing others to help is a way to save yourself. I looked into his eyes and suddenly understood the meaning of his words and answered him back very seriously. Ryan, searching for or being near similar souls is nothing more than a brief escape. But a momentary comfort is ultimately just self-deception. It won't solve the problem. How do you know if you don't try? He suddenly circled my waist from behind. Arya, I want to try. My body was slightly stunned. I didn't refuse. That night, fine kisses fell in my neck. He suppressed 1,000 emotions and whispered in my ear. Arya, can you not make a place for me in your heart? I came and I don't want to leave. I didn't answer him. I blocked his lips harder and rolled over to crush him underneath me. The beach was quiet at night. So quiet that you could hear the whistling of the sea breeze and the panting of the two of us. We were like two animals in a frenzy, entwined tightly together, giving vent to our deepest, most primitive desires. But it was clear to each other that every touch was a hiss from the soul. When it was over, there was only a mess. Something was pinning away. I replied to him after all. Ryan, my heart is big enough to hold a lot of people. And you can certainly get in there. But you're like him. But you can never be him. No one can be him. He didn't say another word. But he held me tighter. I thought the days would go on like this until one evening in the dead of winter. A woman came to the beach. A very beautiful woman. She was wearing a white sweater and a long beige skirt. And her long hair was like a waterfall, which made her whole temperament even cooler. I walked over to her with a menu and asked, Hello, ma'am. What can I get you to drink? She casually ordered a latte, and then raised her eyes to me. I'm looking for someone. Have you seen a very tall and thin man with a bit of an artistic flavor? He sings beautifully, tilts his head to the left when he plays the guitar, smiles with shallow pear swirls, and has a small, black mole under his left collarbone. When describing these characteristics, she was staring at me as if she wanted to see through me. Intuition told me she knew I recognized it. And she was doing it on purpose. She was being provocative. At that moment, Ryan happened to come over with his coffee and met her eyes. Her eyes instantly moistened. She got up and pulled his arm, and cried out in a lost voice. "Cloud steps. I've finally found you." But Ryan looked at her with confused, puzzled eyes as he slowly opened his mouth and asked, "Who are you? Why you don't recognize me? How can you? I'm your wife Vivian. We've been married for 7 years. Don't you remember?" She choked out, tears falling down her face, so fragile that they seemed to break at the slightest touch. Ryan stood there wooden lie, somewhat coldly, and returned her, "I'm pretty sure I don't know you. You have the wrong person. Please go back." After saying that, he glanced towards me again. "I have a girlfriend and I'm living a happy life. I hope you won't bother me anymore." The girl, Vivian, slowly slumped into the sofa seat and questioned with red eyes, "How could you do this to me? Ryan, you used to love me so much. How could you forget me? You're lying to me, aren't you? Do you have any idea how I've been living all these days since you disappeared?" She got more and more agitated. But Ryan was adamant. "I don't know you. Let the past stay in the past. All you love is the past me. And the present me is a different person. I'm sorry." With that, he nodded at her and turned to leave. She was stunned in place. The whole person seemed to be drowned in tears. Outside the house at that time, snow drifted leisurely. The first snow of this year. But I know in my heart that no matter how much it falls, there are some things that can't be covered up after all. Over the next few days, Vivian didn't leave. She watched Ryan every day, seemingly double-checking that he wasn't really turning into another person. She was probably disappointed, because at this point, Ryan only had eyes for me. Unwillingly, she repeated to him, "Ryan, when we first met on the Champs-Élysées in Paris, it was a rare winter with heavy snowfalls, just like now. And you said I looked like one of your old friends." She said, "When we returned home, you proposed to me and gave me a whole room full of pink Diana roses. You said your life was complete because of me. We've traveled too many places in the world." She excitedly took out a bunch of photos. "Look. Every place we went. We took a lot of pictures together. You said you were afraid I would forget you. You're also an original singer. You said that every song you sing only for me." Ryan just listened to all of this without any waves. Finally, he looked at the pedestrians passing by in front of the cafe and spoke calmly. "Vivian, if you really have a strong desire to talk, please tell these stories to Arya. She loves stories. She can also put your story in her book. Maybe it will help you find that person." The light in Vivian's eyes faded, covering her chest and teary-eyed. She said stubbornly, "It's okay, Ryan. You just forgot about me for a while. I'll help you get your memory back." The kids who came to the store to play saw Vivian pestering Ryan again and chattered to me to complain. "Mrs. Boss, Yin Ji's brother is being pestered by a pretty sister. Why don't you do something about it? She's not a pretty girl. She's not even close to your wife. She seems to be a crazy person. Why does she stay here? So Yin Ji can't fall in love with the boss's wife. Don't be rude." I pinched their noses and gave each of them a bear cookie, sending them off to play elsewhere. Ryan seemed a bit angry. "Vivian, you've interfered with my normal life. Please leave and never come back." He paused and added with some hesitation, "In the meantime, please live your life. Even if you don't have the Ryan you're looking for in your world. Thank you." The light in Vivian's eyes went out completely and she really obeyed and left. And never came back. After that, no one ever mentioned Vivian again, as if she had never been here. But I could feel that Ryan had changed. He became more depressed than ever. Often sitting alone on the beach, smoking cigarettes one after another. His heart seemed to be full of stories. So full that it was about to overflow. But there was no outlet for it. He did not say. I do not ask. The days went on like this. When the new year came, he hugged me tightly in the fireworks and whispered in my ear, Arya, thank you for coming into my life. I smiled at him. You're welcome. The weather is getting warmer. We have a big dog. And from time to time we take him for walks together on the beach. It was very clingy and always liked to rub against Ryan's feet. Ryan spoiled him and sometimes carried him on his back. The days were slow and seemingly uneventful. But I knew that something was quietly breaking. Because Ryan started waking up in the middle of the night, screaming a name I hadn't heard before. Yulan Ying. I thought I'd misheard. But it was indeed Yulan Ying. And not Vivian. I asked him if he was having a nightmare. He didn't answer me back. He just buried his head into my neck and hugged me tighter, shrinking into a tight ball like an insecure infant. He woke up the next day and made me coffee like nothing had happened. Until one day, he got a call out of the blue and left in a hurry. Sam, the store boy, said. I vaguely heard. As if someone had committed suicide. I've never seen him panic like this. What a strange man who keeps you guessing. I muttered. This month's paycheck hasn't been settled yet. Sam was in a good mood and boldly teased me. Boss lady. Aren't you sad that he's gone? Sad about what? I slowly unwrapped a box of cigarettes, took one out and lit it. What kind of man do you want? He's just another passerby. I picked up the lighter I just used and slammed it at him. Go do your job. After Ryan left, my life didn't change much. On the contrary, the big dog we had was sniffing Ryan's clothes and whimpering from time to time. It wasn't long after that I found out I was pregnant. 7 as usual. I took the big dog for a walk along the beach when Sin suddenly stood in front of the cafe and shouted at me. Boss lady, there's news about Ryan. He's on the news. He's on the news. I waved my hand at him, signaling him to go back, and continued walking in the distance. Nowadays, the big dog rarely sniffs Ryan's clothes anymore, and no longer makes whimpering noises that are unintelligible. Instead, he has started to stick to me, enjoying circling around me and rubbing against my feet. I bent down against its head and it sniffed hard at my face. Its heavy breath was on my face, and it was so fluffy. I know that this is its way of expressing its love. Back to the store. I hear them gossiping. I can't tell. Ryan is a big lover. I don't know how badly he's hurt. He looks so serious. Hey, you guys. Is that woman out of her mind? She burned herself. She's not afraid of getting the neighbors involved. What do you mean? She's a single-family house. That woman looks familiar. Has she been in our store before? What are you talking about? Don't you have to work? When they saw me coming back, they instantly dispersed. Only Sam, who has never been afraid of death, came over to me. Man, Ryan's probably dead. The fire was so big. He'd have right in. I can tell he really didn't want to live. He watched my expression. Don't you care at all? At least they've been with you for so long. I plucked out a glance at him, and didn't say anything. He shut up smartly and turned towards the bar. About a week later, the peace in the store was broken again. They were all saying, Ryan's not dead. But the girl he rushed in to save didn't make it back. What a shame. She was so young and pretty. Ah, I remember. She really did come to our store to see Ryan before. I think her name was something like Vivian. Oh my God. She's the one who died. I hadn't planned on keeping that baby. As the doctor placed the probe of the ultrasound on my abdomen, I heard an extremely powerful pounding heartbeat. And the doctor said, the baby is developing well. The doctor said, the baby is developing well. It will be a healthy and active baby. I don't know why. But for some reason, my eyes got a little moist. At that moment, I decided to keep him. Life is a sea of mountains and rivers. What we can hold on to is ultimately too little and too few. Since fate has come, let's cherish it. In the vast universe, he chose me to be his mother, so he must have his reasons. Since then, I have been going to the hospital on time for maternity checkups. As time went by, I slowly began to show my pregnancy, and the gossip about me in the town increased. The lady who owns the CAF by the sea is pregnant. What's so unusual about that? When has she ever been without a man? I don't know whose it is. She's so beautiful and rich. Why doesn't she find a good man to marry? I heard she has a fiancé, but her fiancé is dead. The men she's looking for behind her are probably just for fun. But she probably doesn't need marriage. No one in the store dares to say anything, except Sam. He even asked me if I ever thought Ryan would come back someday. I gave him 2 words, anything. His eyes wide and in disbelief. For me, it was all right. After he was swept under the sea, every day of my life was predictable. And there were many people who would pass through my life. And I cherished fate, looked forward to meeting, and didn't refuse to embrace. But I don't care who stays, much less for whom. What I care about is just the second of knowing in the moment. 9. This year's fall seems to come a little faster than in previous years. The sea is also cooler than ever. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to do that. I went to the sea with a customer in the store and had a good harvest, salvaging a lot of shellfish. His name is Leo and he is a freelance photographer. He rents a house by the sea and has been living here since the height of summer. There are so many places to live in the world. Why did you choose this place? I mean, it's so remote. His hair was blown high by the sea breeze, and his low voice drifted into my ears. I happened to pass by, and thought it was beautiful, so I decided to stay. Didn't you? Pretty much. There are some places that seem to be pulled by fate, and once you're here, you can't leave. He found this statement very interesting and agreed with me. Just as some people's encounters carry a sense of destiny, he regarded me as a confidant. We talked a lot about our work. I was convinced that my characters had souls, and he was convinced that every shot he took had a story. Only towards the end of the fall, a crazy woman came to the store and made a scene. She yelled at me for being a third party, said her husband didn't come home because he was seduced by me. I thought it was ridiculous, raised my hand and slapped her to shut her up. She rushed up to me out of control and was forced away by Leo, who I heard whisper to me, "Arya, I'm sorry." Turning to the woman again, he said, "Stop it." They tore and bickered and cursed their way out of the cafe. Since then, I haven't seen Leo again. Miraculously, when the first snow fell in winter, there was a familiar figure standing in front of the store, as if it was an unreal dream I had. His long body, angular face is like a sculpture. Perhaps because it is too cold, I clearly see the bottom of his eyes, covered with a layer of white fog that has not been dispersed. Seeing me, he said with slightly trembling lips, "Arya, I'm back." I pulled the corner of my mouth to smile at him. "Welcome." The next second, Sam rushed over with gusto. "Ryan, you're finally back. Where have you been all this time? Are you okay? Let me tell you. We saw the news earlier and we were worried about you." He said, "It's good to see you're okay." Ryan raised his hand to pat his shoulder. The corner of his mouth pulled out an arc, and said softly, "Sam, I'm fine." He walked past Sam towards me. "Are you okay?" I smiled and nodded at him. Suddenly the big dog we had rushed towards him and circled him over and over. Ryan slowly knelt down and stroked his head and said in a muffled voice. Ryan slowly knelt down and stroked its head, saying in a muffled voice, "I'm so glad you remembered me." That night, the sky was full of stars. The stars were shining brightly. Only Ryan woke up in a dream, and murmured in my ear with pathos, "She's dead. I killed her. If only I'd gone back with her. I should have gone back with her. I should have realized that she was not her. She was herself. I was so wrong." And this is what I get for it. I patted his back and comforted him softly. It's okay. It's over. It's going to be okay. He rested his head on my arm and fell into a deep sleep. I didn't ask him if he never lost his memory. I didn't ask why Vivian died. I didn't ask who Lan Ying was. And I didn't ask why he fell into the sea in the first place. And why he's back again now. I don't care. Every soul spends the winter alone in its own world. And all we have to learn throughout our lives is to heal ourselves. No one can help anyone. And no one is anyone's salvation. 17 When Ryan returned. The cafe was crowded again. He still sings with his guitar. His voice is deeper and more melancholic than before. Like telling a distant story. Sometimes I wondered if he was real. He seems to be living a life that is detached from the world, and supported only by the spirit. The world is either sober or stupid, lazy or progressive, but only he stands alone. All alone, like a tired bird out of the old forest. The pond fish no longer have the old abyss. In the evening sun is off duty, impatiently hiding in the clouds. We were accompanied by the sound of the waves on the beach, blowing in the wind. My hair was longer than ever, and when the wind blew it stuck to my face, making a mess. He casually helped me pin it behind my ear and spoke softly. You're a little thinner than before. Then asked with downcast eyes. Is the baby mine? I looked at him with a confused face and smiled brightly. Of course it's mine. Can't you see that he grew out of my body? What does it have to do with you? You know that's not what I meant. Whatever you meant. My child has nothing to do with anyone. But I want you to have something to do with me. Arya. I want you to have something to do with me. He seemed a little agitated. And I turned my head away from looking at him again. And said faintly. What you want is your business. You don't have to tell me. I'm only responsible for my own life. You are also responsible for yours. Inexplicably a little annoyed. Forcefully kicked the snow under my feet far away. In a split second of turning around. I make a decision. I'm going to stay away from Ryan. I'm going to have more and more relationships. I'm going to keep starting and parting. And I'm going to show him that he's no different than any of the other people who passed through my life. They're all just passing through. Walk away. Get greedy. And be done with each other. 12 The cold wine still stings. But a warm winter has lived in my heart ever since. Because my child was born. It was a little boy with dark hair and big eyes. The moment I saw him, it was like the person who lived in my heart came back to life. And the moment Ryan saw him, he suddenly burst into tears and took my hand and told me thank you. Kind of annoying. Had to kick him out to calm down for a while. As the baby grew up day by day, some people started to talk behind my back. The baby is Ryan. Right? It looks so much alike. It doesn't matter whose it is. It's not like the boss's wife needs a man. Much less a marriage. But I think Ryan really wants to get married. Didn't you see the way he looked at the boss's wife? More than that? He's overly attached to that kid. 2. I never cared about those comments. I've always been a selfish person. All I cared about was myself. But I didn't realize. When the new year came, Ryan proposed to me under a sky of fireworks and said, Arya, I want to have a family with you. He said, I'm like a traveler with no place to call home. Wandering alone in the world. And it's you who makes my heart willing to stay. Who gives me a reason to stop. The sea breeze blew my hair around, and I subconsciously tightened my shirt. He repeated, Arya, will you marry me? I stared at him in a daze. And for the first time, there was dislike in my eyes. Yes, I resented him. I tried to pull a smile out of my face and turn to leave. He catches up with me. Endless loneliness spreading under his eyes. But unfortunately I can't see anything. The fireworks were beautiful and my eyes were busy. Ryan hasn't mentioned marriage since. Like me. He set his heart on his children. Some people choose to dance on the clouds. Some are obsessed with walking against the pavement. And I, at that time, should have stood somewhere in between. No longer do I desire to climb to the top of a mountain and look down on the earth. Nor do I want to stand at the foot of a mountain and look up at the sky. I just want to exist in the middle of the mountainside. Feel the beauty of life in small pieces. I want to accompany him to watch the clouds roll in and out. The tide rises and falls. I want to tell him stories. Fly kites with him. And take him to collect shells on the beach. I want to take him to the sea. Blow the wind of the seasons with him. And enjoy the sunrise and sunset with him. He didn't have to care who his father was. Nor did he have to know what kind of person his mother was. He is independent. He belongs to himself. And I cherish this encounter with him. And don't mind that he came into the world through the use of my body. With me as mother and son. And will even be grateful for it. 13. When the new spring came, I started dating more often. Going out with different men. Drinking different kinds of alcohol. Drunk even when I was sober. And always sober when I was drunk. When I returned late one night, Ryan pinned me against the wall with red eyes and asked me, "Why?" I pressed the tip of my index finger against his lips and asked knowingly, "Why what? Why did you mess with me, and then abandon me? You know, I've messed with a lot of people. But I'm not responsible. I don't believe you. Why am I the only one who's moved on?" I snorted and whispered in his ear, "Baby, believe it or not. If you can't afford to play, don't play. Arya." He pressed down on me as if he wanted to rub me to pieces. The moment my skin touched, time seemed to stand still. It wasn't until the taste of blood in my mouth spread that he reluctantly separated from me. Then disheveled, he crouched on the ground without a word. I took out my cigarettes and lighter, and lit them with a bark. Watching the fire between my thumb and forefinger flicker, my heart was troubled and confused. Like a torn thread. Handing him the cigarette case. "Want one?" said. Sat down beside him. He took it and lit it. The moon was cool as water. And the sound of the wind from the depths of the ocean was like the hissing of souls. "Ryan." I whispered his name. "Do you remember what I told you when we first got together?" He looked away in confusion. Still not saying a word. I said that my heart is so big that it can hold a lot of people. And of course you can go in there too. But you're like him. But you can never be him. No one can be him. Now you've crossed the line. And it's time for you to leave," he said as he suddenly wrapped his arms around me like a child, and leaned his head on my shoulder. "Arya. I was wrong. I shouldn't have wanted more. I shouldn't have broken the rules. I shouldn't have invited you into my heart without your permission. You're fooling yourself," I said quietly as I exhaled a slow puff of smoke. "I'm not in your heart. I'm only in your fantasies. And you don't love me. You just need an outlet. An emotional outlet. You need to get rid of your guilt. You think of Vivian as Yulan Ying's double, don't you? You fell into the sea to save Yulan Ying." His body suddenly stiffened. And I continued. "You haven't lost your memory. You're just running away. You were ashamed of her. Yet you fell in love with her after her death. Being with me helps you briefly forget the self you hate. But you're always fooling yourself. Ryan. I'm not like you. When I love someone, I keep them in my heart for the rest of my life. Until I die. And you'll look for a substitute. You never know what loyalty is. What respect is. Much less what real love is. You just pretend to be affectionate and keep moving yourself. Might as well tell you that not only will I not love you, I will despise you." And night was quieter than ever. And the wind on the beach was louder than ever. When I got up to leave, he still sat quietly. Didn't look back at me or explain anything. Unexpected. Ryan had disappeared once again. When I woke up the next day, he was gone. There was no coffee brewing on the table. Only a yellowed note with 6 words, "Thank you, Arya." I shrugged indifferently and crumpled the note into a ball, and threw it in the trash. Then went to make coffee by myself. I didn't need anyone to make it for me in the first place. It was just for me. 14. After Ryan's departure, The CAF supply until had dwindled. And the usual bustle had diminished. His fans were all down in the dumps, asking me every day, "Ma'am, where's Ryan? Why did he leave without saying goodbye again? He's such a weird guy. He's so irresponsible and rude." I smiled and comforted them. There's a time to meet and a time to see each other again. Some things can't be forced. We might as well choose to respect them. We're not in your position. We just want to listen to the song. Well, let's do it this way, 20 off on coffee today. As a consolation for your broken hearts. Okay? The crowd reluctantly dispersed. It was finally over. It was a surprisingly busy summer. And business was better than ever. So I had to hire more people. That's when Ben came along. He was a student in graduate school, taking advantage of his vacation to work part-time. And he said, "Boss lady, I fell in love with this place at first sight. Please keep me." Why? Because my name is Ben. You'll do grand business by keeping me. I let out a giggle as I looked at the teenager's vibrant face. In that moment, I remembered Ryan, who I had just rescued from the sea. He was so eager for me to keep him then too. But his response was, "This place somehow makes me feel at peace." They are two very different people. Ryan made the place more literary, as if he were here to practice. Ben, on the other hand, would make this place more lively. He was here to play. Thinking about it, I nodded at him. "Okay. You're it." He was happy as a child and ran over to greet his co-workers. Everyone loved him. A good-looking boy with a sense of humor is inherently likable. When I was busy with work during the day, he would help me with the kids at night. He would take him to the beach to chase the wind, would lift him above his head, would yell into the depths of the sea and listen for an echo. He would also dig in the sand with him, burying the shells he found carefully, digging them out again, and burying them again. The evening breeze in the height of summer carried a warmth that squeaked and smoked like water accidentally dropped into a barbecue grill at first touch. Something was over. Something, at the same time, was beginning anew. 15 as it cooled a little in the fall. And there were fewer tourists. I was free again, and had nothing to do but go catch the ocean. But I never picked up anyone again. Some time later, there was a song called Café by the Sea that suddenly exploded in popularity. And it was played on the streets and everyone could hum it. For whom is the CAF by the sea open? For whom is your heart waiting? I'm not a returnee. I'm just a passerby. Meeting you is the best thing that ever happened to me. You're the free wind. It's an honor to be blown by you. You're the endless sea. It's no regret to have met you. I noticed. The song was written, composed and sung by the same person. Ryan, who is really an original singer. Looks like what that Vivian girl said was true. Boss lady. My thoughts were interrupted by Sam, who came straight to me with a poster. Look. It's Ryan. Ryan is a big singer now. He's coming to our place for a concert. He's going on a national tour. And this is the first stop. Oh. I know. Don't argue. I put the beans in the coffee maker. Add water. And hit start. Aren't you excited? Why should I be? You don't have feelings for him? I see you have feelings for him. So remember to get an autograph from him. Go go go. Go away and play. I sent him away. And the world was finally clear. Ryan came in early winter as promised. And the town was bustling like never before. As we all agonized over not being able to grab tickets, we were informed that admission was free for those at the beachside café. I gave them a break and sat alone in the doorway to catch the breeze. The wind of early winter was cool but not harsh. The coffee was fragrant and strong. And my heart was warm and still. This winter seems to be a little different. 16 later in the evening, I switched from coffee to wine and drank from the stars to the darkness of the sky. I drank until Ryan, out of the blue, showed up. He didn't say anything, just sat quietly beside me. It wasn't until I got up and was about to close the door that he spoke slowly. Arya, can I stay? I shook my head. You're not needed here. What if I promise that I'll never leave without saying goodbye again? Why won't you love me? He can't come back. He doesn't have to come back. Because he never left. Arya. Wake up. I looked at him calmly as he came over to me in desperation and hugged me, burying his head in the crook of my neck. Give me a chance. Okay? Bye, Ryan. I turned and closed the door, isolating the world outside the CIF. The first snow of winter fell that night. Ryan didn't leave. And the man I was waiting for didn't return. We were both in our own worlds. Alone for the winter. Alone to heal ourselves. Until the end of our lives.